Hello and welcome to the Super Rugby Round 3 review brought to you by DrivingMaul. Hi, I'm Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul, a podcast, a YouTube channel, what else am I? Twitter account and a website as well, all under DrivingMaul. And joining me this evening is no one other than New Zealand Fatso himself, Ashwin. How are you doing, sir?
Oh, not too bad at all, actually. I'm recovering after the weekend, coming out of the 5 or 7 or 10 stages of grief or whatever it's called.
And and for those of you watching on YouTube, you'll notice that Ashwin has gone to great expense and gone out and bought himself a spotlight. No, don't flash your T-shirt. Dear me. Look, we don't want to see skinny Indian guys. Come on. All right, all skinny white guys. Don't worry, it's not a racist thing. It's a skinny thing. Don't want to see skinny bodies. All right, let's get it out there. So we just talked about this before, but you've not been playing Pump for Prizes, and I have.
No,
so I have got myself just flip to me. There you go, a hat. Whee! Bucket hat I won, and I've also won a not a 3G. That would be nice, wouldn't it? No, a Bluetooth speaker, and also a little thing you stick on your phone and put your credit cards in, which I've got no idea what I'm going to do that with that, so I don't do that. Sorry, join Pump for Prizes. It's a free competition. You win all this kind of stuff. I've had a shocker predicting this week, so I'm not going to win the garden chair that's up this week. But yeah, they've got a prize every week, so give it a go. So you can see I'm wearing T-shirt stuff. Yeah, you got loads of stuff last year. And no, I'm not sponsored by them, but I would like to be. So if you're watching Pump for Prizes, or more to the point, placemakers, give me some money.
Show me the
stuff
money.
Because I'm just good at. I'm good at actually predicting. You know, Good evening, Andre, who's on the live chat. Good to see you. So, yes, 7 stages of grief and all of that kind of stuff. Always helped along by a good beer, I find. So,
or a cheeky little single malt.
Or a cheeky little single malt. Yes. Well. So let's kick off then with the review. We had a full round of Super Rugby fixtures, and none of this kind of like first round where we just had 2 games. And it kicked off on Friday night with the Blues versus the Chiefs. The Chiefs missing 15 players, losing Stevenson in the warm-up, meaning that they had to draft in Falcon at number 10. And if you don't know who Falcon is, don't worry, you weren't the only one. Putting David McKenzie back at 15 and only having 2 backs on the bench, and the Blues still couldn't get the job done.
Did the Blues play on Friday? Was there a game?
Was there a game?
No, well, I mean, and that's a fair question, because did they turn up anyway?
Mr. Gullible here
look, I mean,
notes quickly and thought, no, what's he talking about?
What's he talking about? Hey, look, I mean, people are lamenting that obviously jumping right to the end of the game here, but people lamenting the last throw. It shouldn't have come down to the last throw. They should have been clear by 20 to go, sort of thing. It's just like, no Brodie Retallick, Sean Stevenson. When you look at the Chiefs team, you look at a Damien McKenzie, you look at a Brodie Retallick, you look at a Sean Stevenson. There's no Sean Stevenson and Brodie Retallick, and they still couldn't get the job done. And
there is a Sam Cane, though, and he's a pretty good player.
Oh, absolutely. Sam Cane, yes, good point. And he did cause a lot of problems at the breakdown for the Blues. It got a few steals, or the penalties generally come rather than the steals these days, but he got a few penalties from the rucks, getting there early over the ball, and generally slowing it down even if he wasn't able to win the ball. So, look, I don't know. Realistically speaking, I don't know what you can surmise from that game in terms of the Blues, because at the end of the day, as I said, a severely depleted Chiefs team, it shouldn't have been a question of coming down to the last minute in that game.
No, it should have been. And we saw some good stuff from them. Pulu forcing his way over for his try was impressive. Mawala avoiding the rush defence, putting Akiri through. So that kind of physicality, that kind of play. Mawala, Nanai doing some good stuff, but unfortunately offloading and giving Webber a run-in try. So they were doing some good stuff there. It's just they make too many mistakes, and the forwards aren't strong enough to boss other teams.
2 things. Well, yeah, I mean, look, to be honest, I think, and we had this conversation when we previewed the competition way back. You look at the Highlanders, Chiefs, and Blues. The fact is that they're very even teams, and so there's two things there that it really comes down to. You've just alluded to the mistake, the error rate that the Blues have, and that's sort of unacceptable at that top level. But the other thing is, and I think it's more important, and this would eliminate some of the errors, is the top 2 inches. Really does come down to the top 2 inches, because that's what it's about at the level. When you look across the spread of players, the skill sets, everything, you're pretty much level. You'll have your superstars in your squad, and you'll have the guys that are up there and providing the grunt, etc. It comes down to the top 2 inches and a good English term, bottle.
And yes, we've got the bottle of beer. So the I'm running through that. Obviously, we had the injuries, but on the whole, the Chiefs got themselves ahead in that 10 minutes after half time with 2 tries. They dominated it. Finally, got a line-up maul. Managed to get the interception try, and that basically killed off the game at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. That Brad Weber try, it was that killed off the game, as you say, and it sort of sums up Nanai. The reality is that the Blues should probably be starting with Nanai at 15 every week, but Collins brings that consistency of delivery, so to speak, of his performance. He does the right thing 99.9% of the time. If Nanai did the right things 99.9% of the time, their Blues team would be quite a different team because of his input from the back.
Oh, absolutely. And then basically after that, the Chiefs play good defense, and Mackenzie just basically was kicking the Blues back into their own half the whole time.
With the wind behind him, there was actually, I don't know if it came across on the TV, being at the game, that wind was actually quite considerable in terms of you put the kick in the right areas and you got good distance and you got good value for your kicks.
Okay, I didn't really see that. That didn't come across in the actual on the TV. But
no, it was quite, and I mean, and also the Blues probably didn't really take advantage. I mean, they didn't take advantage of the game, but they really, in that first half, when they had that win, they really didn't use it to their advantage.
No, and the tackling at that point, the Chiefs were below 50% in the first half. Missing half your tackles is a joke, and to not be up by more, the Blues really hurt there. The Blues were 79%. Sorry, 79%, and the Chiefs were 73% during the game. It's not great at this level.
No.
And then which I think has become a bit of a theme during Super Rugby this year, is that tackling hasn't been great.
Okay.
And then also, just to do that, was the 13 kicks from hand from the Blues compared to 21 for the Chiefs. So once the Chiefs got their nose in head, I'd say they just kept
playing the right part of the field.
Playing in the right part of the field. So Blues have now won one of their last 24 New Zealand derbies. As
but
Andre
you want me
says,
to walk away? You want me to walk away now, do you?
Well, no, we're going to move on now. But Andre says Blues are done, gents, on tour now, and they won't recover.
Yeah, look, I mean, he's got a valid point there. They got a hard road. They got the Lions this weekend, and yeah, look, it's backs against the wall, and it's 2 games in. One thing I'll just, before we move on, the game got summed up for me. Would have been the first half actually. Anyway, Messon, there's a ball goes dead in goal, drop out for the 22 for the Chiefs, and the Blues cover one person for the quick dropout. Goes to Messam, and the Blues are just wandering around, and he takes a quick drop and runs upfield. I think it might have been the movement that Damien McKenzie actually got really smashed in, but that summed it up. And the fact is that where the hell was the urgency to get and cover? What's the first thing you do on a 22 dropout? You spread across the line, cover that quick dropout, and there was just nobody there. Yeah,
that seems to be a Chiefs plan, because they did that in the first game as well. So they're trying not to do a long kick; they're trying to do a little quick one. So that does definitely seem to be part of their plan. Cool. Anyway, now we have a real problem in Super Rugby, and that is that whenever we start off on a Friday, we have a great game that's a New Zealand derby, and then we go and follow it up by a Australian derby or Australian game that's not particularly good, and they keep dropping the ball and things. So I think what we really need to do is Super Rugby needs to concentrate on getting Australian games before New Zealand games as a warm-up, and they need to spin the world the other way. So that's got to be Super Rugby's next task is to alter the way the world spins so that Australia happens before New Zealand during the daytime.
They're struggling to get people to the ground as it is. You're wanting them to turn up at 5 o'clock straight after work.
No. I'm
Be in
saying
the pub.
It needs to be 7 o'clock, but their 7 o'clock needs to be our 5 o'clock. I.e. the world. Yep. So if we spin the world the other way around, if everyone runs in the other direction, we'll be fine.
You want to go back to Superman 1 when he goes to save Lois by flying around the world?
That's the one. We need Superman. That's all that will save. That's all that will save Australian rugby is Superman. If we don't get Superman, Australian rugby is dead. A little bit harsh, maybe.
Harsh, but fair. Harsh, but fair.
True. So the big talking point about this in this game really probably was the shoulder barge and was it a yellow or not? So where do you sit on that one?
It's yellow. You're talking about when they went back to the replay, and the first tackler comes in, and the second tackler drops the arm, and then goes in with the shoulder. That's the yellow card you're talking about. Yeah,
that's the only one in the game.
Yep. Right. So yellow every day of the week. As soon as they showed the replay, I saw it, and it's like, look, he's gone. It's the rule. That's the new rule. That's what they're playing to, and that's if the referee's going to be consistent, that's yellow card. He's got no arms in the tackle, and he's gone in with force with the shoulder. It's not rugby league. He needs to wrap.
Absolutely, and that's I can't believe how many people are going. Nothing wrong with that. He's got one arm around trying to wrap. It's like no, he's dropped his arm in, dropped his shoulder. A shoulder barge has been a yellow card for a couple of years now. This is not new rules.
Yeah.
The new rules are about contact with the head. And if you hit the head, then we're talking red. But
look, we're dangerous territory here because I'm going to start sounding like Justin Marshall with the knockdown of the ball, but the consistency of the ref, and we saw it this weekend as well. There was none. Harking back to the Blues game, Nepo Lalala goes off with his arm. I don't know if it's broken or what. But if you go back to the replay, it's a swinging, well, not necessarily a swinging arm, but it's an arm with force directly to the head of Matt Duffy, and nothing. So, as I said, all we're looking for is consistency. I thought the Reds card, yellow card was correct.
Yeah, so I'm just amazed how many people. I mean, the commentary at the time for the Australian commentators was, "This is nothing there. Move on, penalty, nothing else." And I just couldn't understand what they were talking about. And a lot of the comments in. On Twitter have been the same, but no, sorry guys, that is a yellow.
Well, look, when it comes to the Australian commentators, they're about building the audience, not necessarily accurately commentating on the game. I know we've got Sean might be listening in or listen to the podcast later, but look, it really is when you got Clarkey and Kaif and mate, buddy, old pal. It's about doing the international audience here might not understand, but doing a Ray Warren, a Rabbits Warren commentary that just builds up that, makes it a more exciting game than it really might be. And that's what it's about with the Australian commentators.
Yeah, unfortunately so. In this game, we've had way too many errors and drop balls. The Blues Chiefs had 13 scrums. This had 19 scrums, which gives you an idea as to how many. The only other bit that I probably want to talk about from this game is the fact it was Lance, and he came across, covered the ball great, and then lost his shorts, which I thought was great.
Yeah, well, look, that's all about getting more women interested in the game.
They had a couple of wardrobe functions. One of the props also lost his shorts at one point as well. I don't think that got quite so many women into the game, but there we go.
Just on that game, I just couldn't get over the fact that the amount of ball that the Reds had, and really didn't do any, couldn't make inroads or score the points.
No, neither. I mean, both sides lacked clinicality. I mean, the Brumbies did score 2 tries, and then the Reds won it with 6 penalties, and we see that in the stats. The Reds gave up 5 penalties, the Brumbies 13, and fine. The Reds gave up a yellow card, which is their 3rd yellow card. Oh no, sorry, they've had a red card and 2 yellow cards in 2 games so far.
Yeah,
which is just crazy. But the overall discipline.
And a comment was made in the game along the lines of, I think the Reds are the most penalised in terms of cards, red and yellow, last year, and it seems to be following on this year as well.
And Brad Thor's not exactly the kind of we don't really know what kind of coach he's like because he's only just started coaching. But from his playing days, let's be honest, you'd say that if it was kind of follow what I do rather than what I say, then they're going to pick up a lot of cards.
Yeah. Hey, look, I mean, one thing in terms of the Brumbies in that game, you know, it was, sorry, I've just got something flying around in front of me. Is this one thing? Is it like obviously the previous week with the Brumbies Sunwolves, and we sort of thought, oh, the Sunwolves are keeping it quite close. I think this week you're starting to ask questions of how good is this Brumbies side, because the Sunwolves that kept it tight with the Brumbies sort of got dealt to by the Rebels, which we'll talk about later, and then the Brumbies struggled against the Rebels, against the Reds, and lost to them. So it's, you know, we were all picking before the competition started as the Brumbies actually being the top side in the Australian Conference.
And you're right; they're not showing that at all so far.
No,
there's the Rebels, if anything, are looking like the top team in the conference. And having said that, let's move on to the Rebels Sunwolves. So the Rebels won it 17-37 in the end. It was 10-all at half time and blew out in the second half. But the only way the Sunwolves scored in that first half was through an intercept. And the Rebels never really looked like losing this, to be honest, did they?
No, they didn't. The Rebel force were a really good, put on a good effort there. Look, as you said, I think the scoreline deceived at half time because of the intercept. The Rebels really did control that game. I don't know more what else you can say about it. I mean, the second half they really ran away with it.
Yeah, they did. In that first half, they just couldn't break down the Sunwolves, but they did. Contain the Sunwolves quite comfortably. To be fair to the Sunwolves, though, they lost 3 backs in the first 20 minutes, meaning they had a loose forward on the wing, so that really did hamper them. And they had nothing to come off the bench in the second half, which I think showed as they got as they got knackered. In the first half, the Sunwolves managed to keep it close by not conceding any penalties, and they only conceded 3 penalties in the entire game. So that was amazing. Whereas the Rebels gave up 16 in that game.
You might be able to correct me on this. Sunwolves would have to be one of the most disciplined sides last year, this year. Would that be accurate, or?
I think so, and I think one of the things that has been said about the Japanese national team is that they play too nicely.
Yeah, they do.
And actually, they need to infringe more, but obviously in a clever way, not in a bad way.
Controlled aggression.
Yep,
I like to call it controlled aggression.
And because they had that upper hand of the penalties, they ended up having 24 lineouts. The problem on that is that they lost 5 of their lineouts, which is awful. They had a really bad.
And they didn't even have Lenny throwing in.
No, and whereas Rebels only won 6 out of their 8, so also not particularly great. Andre says Rebels' game was close on all fronts. Rebels just finished far better. I'm not sure. I don't think that the Sunwolves ever really looked like breaking the Rebels down. And I think the Rebels had them comfortably on defence.
Look, I mean, I think as someone who supports the Blues, you can look good all night, but if you don't break down the opposition defence, you're not going to score points. And it doesn't count for anything. Hold the ball, get phase to phase to phase, but at the end of the day, you've got to break down the defence and score some points.
Yep, exactly, and that's what we didn't see. So. On then to the Saturday night game in New Zealand, the Crusaders hosting the Stormers. And basically, this was a 20-minute game.
Yeah, pretty. If you're a Stormers fan, you would have gone, "Oh, we're back within a shout. We're 10 points behind." And reality is that what most likely happened, and the Crusaders got up by a big lead, took the foot off the pedal, and gave and the Stormers came back into it. I don't know. That's the way I sort of see it. Yeah, I mean, when you're in New Zealand, whether it's Canterbury or the Crusaders, you see it a lot where you sort of think, "Oh, we're coming back into it." Reality is that they've taken the foot off the throat a bit, and then they wake up to the fact that they have, and they put it back down again.
Yeah, I think that's what we were running it well over a point a minute in the first 20 minutes. I think like 26 points up at that point. So this could have blown out to 80 odd points if the Crusaders had kept on at that pace, but clearly they didn't. They ended up only, he said in inverted commas, scoring 45 points.
Only 45.
And again, this is another one where the set piece really didn't function very well. I mean, the Crusaders won 9 of their 11 lineouts, and then the Stormers only won 10 of their 15. So 1 in 3 lineouts they lost, which meant that they had no continuity at certain parts of the game, which allowed the the Crusaders to take over. The Crusaders could happily give up penalties. The Stormers would kick for a line out, and they'd get the ball back again.
Yeah. I was just going to say, look, there's something about the Crusaders. They're able to put pressure on your set pieces. I mean, they might overpower you in the scrum, but they might not necessarily overpower you in the scrum. But they're still able to put pressure on there. And then the those little voices start up in your head, especially with lineouts. They put pressure on in a couple. They only have to do in a couple of lineouts, cause pressure. You lose the ball, and then those little voices in your head sort of start to play tricks with you. So they don't have to put pressure on every lineout right through the game. Just a couple, and you're off your ball, off your game.
Yeah, exactly. And then defensively, they were top notch. They made 141 tackles out of 168 attempts, so 84%. Whereas the Stormers made 78 out of 110, or 71%. And that's basically, that's when the Crusaders turned it on. They turned it on lovely. Turned it on well.
Hey, look, I'll get your South African listeners and watchers a bit excited. I haven't seen anything come out in terms of a sightings commissioner when Sam Whitelock put his foot on his on one of the Stormers players' heads when the maul was going forward. I saw some video footage of it on the weekend. Yeah, and nothing's come out. Yeah, it's like, look, I don't know if it's I'm not saying it's intentional, but at the end of the day, it did happen. And this comes back to my hobby horse of the fact that the consistency on the sightings commissioner on the field, off the field, whatever. Where is it? Because at the end of the day, there's still contact with the Stormers' head with force, and there should have been at least a review of that. And I haven't heard anything.
No, that's true. And now I've not heard anything about that either. And that now brings the run to the Stormers drew their first ever game in Christchurch, and they've lost their last 13 attempts. So actually, I don't know if one of those would have been outside of Christchurch, but either way, they've lost. Lost 12 attempts. Sorry, out of 13 attempts, they've drawn once. So there we go. Andre says in the chat, South Africans don't complain like Kiwis and Aussies do. Andre, if you can't tell by the name, it is a South African friend of mine. So there we go.
Oh, hang on. So what was it? 2011? Was it the quarter final at North Harbour? I won't bring that up. And the referee couldn't safely go back to South Africa to ref a game. But I won't bring that up.
Oh, that was awful. Oh, yes, that wasn't great. The only other thing to come out of this one, obviously, is Richie Mo'unga is out with a shoulder injury. I'm not sure how long for. I've not seen. But if he's out, then that's going to be a massive loss to the Crusaders and definitely levels the playing field for all the other New Zealand franchises, at least.
You say levels the playing field. Remember the replacements, the guy that dropped the goal from 50 out with time up on the clock against the Highlanders to win it last year. Look, it does. It will be an impact. And obviously Mitch Hunt's going to have a lot more time in that 10 jersey, and we'll see whether, it's an opportunity for other teams. You've got to look at a new guy there in the 10 jersey, and you have to come up with a game plan to put pressure on him.
Absolutely. Maybe that put forward pack is going to get rid of an armchair ride anyway. So yes, it's going to be good for him. We then go to perhaps the most surprising result of the weekend. The Sharks versus the Waratahs, 24-all. This Waratahs side isn't actually looking that bad at the moment.
I don't know. It's such a hard one to tell, really. When you saw them, I saw them play the week before, and against the Stormers, was it? If I remember rightly. Yep. And it's just like, I'm not convinced on the Waratahs. I'm sorry. I'm going to be in a different boat from you on this one. Because the other thing is with the Sharks. I'm not convinced on the Sharks either. That's why it sort of could have been a dance of the desperates game there. But you'd sort of think you'd still be, if you're the Sharks, you're disappointed because it's a home game. And, you'd look to be taking away the lollies.
So Sharks are Andre's team, and he goes, Sharks are a charity service. Yes, we had the Sharks. A lot of us talk about Sharks, talking them up, that they would be the big the challengers to the Lions in this Africa conference, and it's perhaps not turning out that way. They lost obviously to the Lions in the opening round. They've had a week off. They've then come back and they've drawn with the Waratahs. They butchered a good couple of opportunities when they were bashing the Waratahs line, and then at the very end, a very poor kick chase allowed the Tars to basically return a kick, put it out wide, and score again. So yes, you've got to give something to the Tars on that they do keep battling all the way to the end. Andre makes another good point. It was too hot. The players were out on their feet, and this is not a great time of year to be playing rugby in South Africa. To be honest, it's hot here in New Zealand, and we know it's hotter over there. So it's perhaps South African teams should all start playing, do their overseas tour all at the beginning of the season, because it is too hot there to be playing rugby.
Well, the same will be the same case for Australia, though. When you're playing your games up in Brisbane, you're getting the same sort of conditions as South Africa. I'm guessing.
I'm not sure. I'd have to go do a bit of a geography lesson. But I say this is one I think the Stormers lost, and the Tars just showed battle to. Sorry, the Sharks lost this game. I mean, they had 16 clean breaks to 9, but they conceded 27 turnovers to 15.
The Waratahs have got this happy knack of going over to Australia and picking up games they're not expected to.
Waratahs got me over to Africa.
Africa, sorry, yeah. They have in the past. They've done it in the past as well. Nobody's expecting them to really pull off the win, and obviously this wasn't the win; it was a draw, but still perform better than what we all expected them to.
Yeah, correct. Durban and Brisbane are the same climate, but so I guess that also played in the Tars' hands that they're used to it, that kind of weather. I think that they should. The Tars still have a problem in their scrum, and they also still have a bit of and they still gave up too many points. Really, I mean, they gave too many opportunities that the Sharks weren't able to finish. So we had all those turnovers, 544 meters run by the Sharks, another 440 by the Tars. There's a lot of running in this game.
A lot of running, and with the heat. But is the heat really a valid, sort of excuse? Not really an excuse, but because now let's say, how many years has Super Rugby been going? And in the last few years, we have been starting in that last week of Feb, first week of March for a long time now. So it's not like teams aren't expecting these sorts of conditions, unless you're telling me it's been hotter than normal, in South Africa. It's
been hotter than normal in New Zealand. I can see. I mean, you're in your singlet. Let's be honest. It's the wrong time of year for playing rugby. We shouldn't be playing rugby. And Brent makes a good point. Both teams are playing in the same humidity. That is true, but they shouldn't be. We shouldn't really be playing at this time of year in those conditions. Full stop.
No, we should be playing in snow.
Well, yeah, don't go there, because we've had the whole. Pretty much all of the Pro 14 was called off that wasn't in South Africa. Anyway, so moving on to the next game in South Africa was the big game of the weekend for me, which was Bulls versus the Lions. A lot of us got carried away with the Bulls' first up performance against the Hurricanes, and they lost this game 35-49 to the Lions. Now, I didn't see this one obviously overnight. I woke up to a lot of tweets telling me that that the Bulls were flattered by the scoreline, but to me, they were in this until about 10 minutes. So a 10-minute stint in the second half when they picked up 2 yellow cards.
2 yellow cards.
But up until then, this was a pretty even game.
Oh, look, just a comment before we carry on, though. It's just like I picked the Lions. Just saying, I picked the Lions. and for the reason that I believe that they won. I mean, obviously there's the 2 yellow cards, but I also felt there's an element of experience on the Bulls. On the Lions, that sort of helped them, get that win as well. The 2 yellow cards, they scored 3 tries, if I'm right, during the 2 yellow cards. So the game really got killed off.
I think they scored one before. They scored one. There was a yellow card. Then there was a penalty try and yellow card, and then they scored another one.
Right.
So
I mean, the Bulls. I mean, there's the Henri Pollard try, which sort of was a bit of a fortuitous try off a kickoff or was a kick anyway into the corner that the Lions muffed, and was basically a pickup by Pollard and scoot to the corner. So and that sort of kept them in the mix as well. Look, don't get me wrong. I mean, my boss is from Bulls country, so he was telling me all about it and his view of the world of it. And it's just like, he felt that the Bulls competed quite well in that game until those cards, and then the Lions ended up with the lead. They came back at the end with a few consolation tries to narrow the score. But yeah, I still think that the Lions sort of had that in control.
Yeah, the Lions are showing themselves to be a pretty clinical team. They made 89% of their tackles. The Bulls only made 74%. And that allowed the Lions to get away with 13 clean breaks to 7. And so, yeah, I do think that, defensively and also on the attack, they had the upper hand, but they didn't actually. And they, when they had their advantage, of the yellow cards, they took it very well.
Yeah.
And so you've got to say, yeah, it's a professional performance for the Lions, but I don't think that I'm not sure that. I think the scoreline's probably about right. I don't think it overly flatters the Bulls. I think the Bulls had played pretty decent.
Hey, just on that Lions team, does it just show how, at the Super Rugby level, I'm going to get butcher his name, I think, but Yankees at 10 plays really well at Super Rugby level, can't take that step up to the international, or that environment isn't created for him to perform at that international level?
I think that he's a player that doesn't do has shown that even at Super Rugby level, put him under pressure, like the Hurricanes did a couple of years ago, and he can and he fluffed his lines. Now, how much of that has he grown and learnt over the last 2 years? I'm not sure, and maybe that's another matter. That's something that will be happening at international level. Is that yes, he's growing, he's maturing, he's getting better, and actually, that was just him being an inexperienced player. And then he's growing into the role. But I think, yeah, he has definitely got a history. He has got a reputation for a player that you can get after. And if you do, he can fluff his lines sometimes. Plus his lines, sorry. Yeah, Brent reckons that Elton can't handle the extra 5% pressure. But yeah, as I say, maybe he'll learn to deal with it. And that's what the problem is. And then last comments, otherwise we'll move on to the last game.
Nope, move on to the last game here.
And in the last game, Jaguares hosting the Hurricanes, and the Hurricanes ran out easy winners at 9:34.
Boy, I don't know. I thought that Hurricanes performance was real Jekyll and Hyde. Some moments of magic. That Blade Thompson pass out the back to, I think it was Fidel, was just a real, because he didn't just do a sunny, sort of like out the back and sort of it was actually fired. He sort of like really rifled it at Fidel, quite a quick pass, I thought. And so the prop did well to take it as well. And then he follows up to back it up to score the try. And then you have those moments when Beauden Barrett just random fling of the pass inside the attacking 22. So real Jekyll and Hyde performance, I thought, pretty inconsistent.
Yeah, I mean, that Thompson break wasn't until the 79th minute, and let's be honest, the game was well and truly won. So he could quite happily throw any old kind of miracle ball and have a bit of a play and see. He wasn't going to get chastised if it didn't come off. Just to go back quickly, Andre makes a good point that the Lions and Box don't play near the same game, and that's part of why. And we've not seen him step up so well. And that's
why I referred to that environment with the Box, whether it's not the environment that works for him.
Yeah, again, not just environment, also game plan.
Game plan. Well, I mean, that's what I mean. Sorry, game plan. Because
you can also get coaches who kind of believe in you and say, "Hey, go and do it," and other coaches who will chastise you if you make mistakes. So I'm not quite sure what Andre Kotzier, which one he was, but yeah, he's gone now, and we'll see what Rasmussen does. Yeah, and this is one, as you can tell by the scoreline, 9 points from the Jaguares. All their points came from kicks. They didn't really look like scoring tries. This was a good defensive effort by the Hurricanes on the whole. They made 79% of their tackles, which it doesn't sound great, but the Jaguares only made 66% of theirs, which is pretty abysmal.
So it comes back to that comment you made right back at the start in the terms of the tackling stats. The conversation have been pretty not good.
There have been some pretty poor ones, teams should be looking at getting over 80% of their tackles. They shouldn't be getting down into the 60s or even the low 70s. To be honest, that led to 17 clean breaks by the Hurricanes, and you've got to say, should they racked up more points than 34? Yes, they should have done, basically, if they'd been on song. As you say, they're not on song at the moment. You've got Barrett throwing these no-look passes that in other times there are players there to pick them up, and suddenly they look miraculous. At the moment, those players just aren't there, and I think the Hurricanes need to if they're in any kind of game that's a challenge, they're going to need to tighten things up, because at the moment it's
that challenge is coming
coming off.
Yeah, challenge big time. They do that sort of stuff this coming weekend. They're going to be in trouble big time.
Exactly, and Andre says the Jaguares missed 30+ tackles on average per game. They only missed 27 in this one, but they only had to make 76. So they, so even though the score is so one-sided, the Hurricanes spent a lot of the time defending. 121 tackle attempts is a fairly chunky number. So the Jaguares had plenty of ball and plenty of opportunity, but they just couldn't break down the Hurricanes.
You have to wonder how much more, not chances as such, but faith, I suppose. Chris Boyd puts in Mr. Severe on the wing. There's a couple of times in the game where you'd sort of think, okay, he's got half a gap. I mean, that's what you get at that level. You don't generally get a full gap. You get half a gap, and he's got no pace to actually accelerate away. He's getting caught.
He hasn't got the pace he used to have, but he's got the power. He doesn't. No, and we saw the power there when he came inside through 3 or 4 players and led to what was a very typical New Zealand try as he kept his feet. It allowed time for other players to flood the channel. He offloaded, and then we had a couple of other offloads, and then they scored.
But that's relying on the poor tackling stats that we've just talked about. Whereas, if you get half a break or half a chance and you've got the pace, you take it. George Bridge being the obvious one there. You look at how he's performing, and the fact is that getting half a chance, he's gone. And you'd rather have that than someone who's relying on poor defence to break his way through.
True, but I think but he is called the bus for a good reason, because he does get through. He causes people not to tackle him. He is a very strong carrier. I think he took a lot more flack in this game than he deserved. There are people like, oh, he knocked that on. It's like, no, that kick was out. There was no way he was going to be able to
bring it in,
drag that one in. So I think a lot of people have got it in for Julian Severe. Do I think that that he's going to get back into the All Blacks? No, I don't. Let's be honest. But did he have an awful game? No more so than all the other players who dropped the ball. Brett's asking.
To be clear, I'm not saying he's had an awful game, and I'm not saying he's a bad player or anything like that. I'm more referring to that pace and that he used to have, as you say. It's sort of that's on the downslope.
Yeah, and that's why he's not in the All Blacks anymore. Brent is saying, "Are New Zealand's off Julian? It seems like it. We'll have him. Thanks." Julian. Basically, the situation is that he's not got the pace. He's not going to do what he did against France at the Rugby World Cup in 2015 anymore. And so he's still a decent player, but he's not an All Black international standard player anymore. He's not the best left wing in the world like he used to be.
Was he wearing 14 on the weekend?
Now this is an interesting. Yes, so Julian Severe has moved over to the right wing in this season in both games. And is there any if you're trying to get back into the All Blacks, do you try and go after the 14 jersey or the 11 jersey? The 11 jersey owned by Rieko Ioane, Breakthrough Player of the Year or Junior International Player of the Year, nominated for World Player of the Year. A lot of people think he played better than Beauden Barrett did last year. Or do you go after the right wing jersey, which has been held by Milner, Scudder, Naholo, Dag, Smith, basically who's fit at the time?
Yeah, who's fit at the time. Mind you, I mean, to be fair, let's look at that 14 jersey in the All Blacks. Injury has stopped Naholo and Scudder owning that jersey.
It has, but if you're going to challenge for one of those, do you go for the jersey that's been?
So you're saying that the guys in 14 are glass, so that's for the best shotters.
Yes. Julian's got a much better. He's realised he's got a much better shot at 14 than he has at 11. So he said, "Hey, Chris, I want to move over, please." And they said, "Okay, yep, we'll accommodate you and we'll give you a go." To be fair, he's come out of pre-season looking a lot fitter than he has done in previous years. Sure, he's not got the pace he used to, but he's not looking overweight. He's not looking kind of like he's blowing like he has done in previous seasons. So I think he has put a decent off-season in. The problem is he's just aged a bit, and we can all appreciate that.
Just another year, absolutely. We're all aging. Feel a bit sore after the weekend. Anyway, that's another story. Another thing I noticed, and I'm curious on this one, is the fact is that after the success of Aso and Laumapi in the midfield for the Hurricanes last year, and Chris Boyd starting Proctor in the midfield with Laumapi. Whether that's just him sort of rotating his players, or whether he actually sort of is putting his best combination from last year on the bench.
So Proctor was injured last year, and listening to the Fantasy Rugby podcast, the Fantasy Draft Rugby podcast, I think it's called. Anyway, either way, one of the guys on there was at a barbecue with Chris Boyd, and one of the things he mentioned was that he reckons Mike Proctor is probably the best, either the most consistent centre in New Zealand, or the best centre in New Zealand. I can't remember exactly what was said, but basically, he sees Wayne Proctor as someone who just does not make a mistake, and whereas Arso has, whilst he's got some great skills and pace, he's not a zero mistake player.
No, he sometimes does have issues with his hands.
But hey, so whereas Proctor's seen as being
more reliable,
absolute Mr. Dependable in that role. But it was interesting to hear Jody Barrett mention that he's put on weight over the off season and wants to be considered at 12. But Chris Boyd has said he's not at 12, so we'll see.
He is, but not yet.
Yes, I know. So one of the lineups that I've put out there. So post Rugby World Cup, we could see Damien McKenzie at 10, Jody Barrett at 12, Akira Ioane at 13, and David Avali at 15.
If you actually kept Bowden Barrett at 10, that's a pretty massive backline.
So yes, Andre Aso and Laumapi both scored again at this weekend. They just score all the time when they are together. They do. Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing that Aso, who is and Laumapi, I mean, Aso equal top try scorer with Laumapi last year, can't get off the bench for the Hurricanes. It just tells you how amazing that backline is. And because Aso can also play on the wing as well. He's also someone who's happy in that 14 jersey in particular. Can Julian keep him out of that jersey? We'll see. A couple of other points. So top try scorer of the season so far, who do you think it is?
George Bridge.
Penalty tries with 5.
Are you taking the proverbial?
5 penalty tries so far this year.
I think that highlights, to tell you the truth, I think that highlights the overuse of the penalty try. Yeah, you go back to last week in the Lachlan Boshier thing and the like, and it's the double whammies type scenarios. No, look, I'm not. If it's absolutely 100% dead set, try was going to get scored on the probability of chances, blah blah blah, then yes, penalty try. But yeah, this whole, you take the offending man out of the play, and then because he's not there, the try would have been scored, so it's a penalty try. I'm not going to go along with that. Yeah, I know it's the rules that they use, but it's not for me.
I think there's been 2, at least 2 that I disagree with. The one against was it against the Bulls or against or was it the Lions? It was like the Lions scored it, so it must have been against the
Bulls.
Anyway, the Bulls. No, I think it was because I think it was not this week, but last week. The previous week. So whoever the Lions were playing, then I've gone blank. But I think the Lions have got away with one, and I think also the Crusaders one against the Chiefs also wasn't a penalty try. So I think there've been a couple that have that have been given extra than shouldn't have done. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I had another point when I went blank as to what it was, so I'm sure we can talk about it next week. But yes, so that's I can't find it. So that's those are all things I want to cover off on, and we are way over time. But hey, any other topics? Because I can keep talking rugby all night.
Look, I've alluded to my hobby horse, so I think that's pretty much covered me off. I think one of your tweets that came through might have been from Andre, that sort of like, Blues backs to the wall already. That's basically it. Thing for me. This is like, does that bring out the best in them, or do they just cave? And in a sense, it's a good measure, because at the end of the day, if they are any good, it'll be backs to the wall and they'll bring the best out of them. So I'm not expecting it.
Yeah, I know. Same here. It's there have been 2 there have been two trains of thoughts I've seen come out on social media. One is that Tanamanga is already heading towards the door because the season's basically over for the Blues. And the other one is that basically the players aren't good enough, and actually Tanamanga's a decent coach, and they need to refresh the players and give them another shot.
Oh, look, I'm really, the revolving door of the coaches at the Blues has not worked. So unless Tana's walking himself, if I was the board, I wouldn't be looking to push him out the door.
So how about Gatland post Rugby World Cup?
Oh, look, if you throw that into the mix, that's a different story. If that's if you're going to replace Tana, it has to be somebody that has got huge credentials basically behind them. They've got the results behind them. There's no point throwing Tana out the door and then just bringing in another Tana. If you understand what I'm trying to say there. In terms of what you're saying, in terms of a Gatland comes onto the shelf and is available, you can pick him off the shelf and he's there. Yeah, that's a different ball game, and that might be in a case of the fact is that, and if I was Tana, you want to look at it. It might be a little bit sort of demeaning, but hey, Gatland's coming in. I can go in as assistant and still learn my trade. Tana's still a young coach. That's the other thing I think we have to remember. Yeah, I suppose it's a little bit debatable whether he should have been appointed to the role with the experience that he had, basically coaching Counties Manukau for 2 seasons. So there was a little bit debatable, but at the end of the day, he's there now. And the last thing you want to see is just this continual revolving door of coaches at the Blues. If you're a Blues supporter, you actually do realize, and you know a bit more about this. The fact is that it's way more than the team. It's way more than the coaches. There's serious issues that the board level needs to look at as well, and the way that whole organisation operates.
It does. It's going to be interesting to see. Graham Henry has come in to help as an assistant coach for the for Auckland in the Mitre 10 Cup. So it's going to be interesting to see whether that turns them around and makes them a bit more professional, or whether they'll stick with having amateur or part-time coaches who are also supposed to be rugby development coaches outside the season. You need to have full-time coaches at Mitre 10 Cup, and perhaps Graham Henry will help sort that side of things out, because that does need some work. Just a couple things, round things off. If you want a deep dive into that Blues Chiefs game, then I did do a 40-odd minute post-game reaction to that game with Michael Pullman. So go back and check that one out, either on the podcast or YouTube. I also did a post-game review to the Jaguares versus the Hurricanes with Ryan for another nearly an hour or so. So you can also go check that one out on the podcast or YouTube. Coming up this week, Andre said it already, juicy fixtures this weekend. Well, tomorrow night we'll have Hash Rugby Chat. We'll go over 5 hot topics in rugby, and we'll sort those out. And then on Thursday, I will be back to preview the round 4 games, and there are some ones there as well. So yes, that's it from me. So Ashwin from the West Stand of Massive, why don't you let people know where they can get hold of you?
At NZ Fatso on Twitter. I'll see you there.
Yeah, it's none of these complicated YouTube channels and websites where you can find all his writing and stuff. No. And also the West Stand at all home games. If you want to
you can always meet me at the West Stand, except Easter weekend, where I'll be up in Russell camping.
Oh, what? God.
Yeah, that's a fail. That's an organisational fail, that one.
What a fail. You've only had a season ticket for about, was it 12 seasons now?
And the rest. Keep going. part-time supporter heading off for Easter. I've been Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul. Yes, at DrivingMaul on Twitter is where you can find me, or catch me in the comments below. If you're listening on the podcast, please do subscribe. Tell all your friends to subscribe and give us a 5-star review. Other stars are available, but why would you want to? If you're watching the recording, watching on YouTube, please do subscribe. You can do that down below, or you can click on my face right there, and there'll be a box there with my latest video. So do check that one out as well. Enjoy whatever rugby you're going to be watching this weekend.